Dit is Ergens Over Radio.
Een andere kijk op de wereld.
You're listening to Pateo Radio.
Thank you for listening to Pateo Radio. Tonight we have a special guest all the way from the United States, the state of Colorado. And I saw a video of him a couple of times, a little bit of time ago. It's called The Tree of Life, and I was really flabbergasted because what he is saying in this video is fully resonating with my work and how I see it. So please welcome our guest of tonight, which is Jeff Williams. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Johan. How's it going?
It's going great here, but your video is so beautiful. For the listeners, if you've not seen it, please go to thespiritscience.net. That's the website of Jeff, and there you can find it. Or you go to Pateo NL, you also find it. But can you please explain, Jeff, how long it took you to make this beautiful video and all the information you give there?
Well, really, it's been occurring my whole life, but in terms of the editing, probably about 2 weeks for that first initial video. I originally was going to do a 40 to 50 minute part without each section, but I ended up making it into 4 different parts.
Yeah, which is really good, I think, but it's still very high information. You give so much information, so people, at least let me speak for myself, I sometimes have to stop it and rewind it a little bit because you keep on talking, and it's really great, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, the main topic is the Kabbala, I think. If I'm saying something which is not true, then please correct me. But that's the main theme. Yeah. But I also wanted to tie in like ancient civilizations, which I'll go into a little shortly, but that is definitely the main mystical teaching of that series. Yeah, and to be honest with you, I've studied a lot of things, but I've not studied the Kabbala yet. So I really enjoyed watching your video, and you also sent me a PDF file where you describe a lot of things. Is it okay, by the way, if I share that PDF file with the audience to put a link to it? Sure. I'm actually trying to revise it a little. That was just a rough draft. Okay. So we'll work in the future to get a final draft out, but sure. Okay, I can wait for the final draft. It's up to you. But if you say this is okay, then I'll put it online. Okay. I can probably get you the final draft in like a day or two. Okay, then for the listeners, if you listen to the recording of this, then I will put the link online under the article so you can find it. That will be great, Jeff. I think we should talk mostly about the Kabbala. It's a kind of universal system, explaining the essence of everything. Can you, for people who have no idea about what the Kabbala is, give a short introduction so that people can have a kind of clue? Yeah, well, it's essentially it's a set of numbers that explains how the universe has manifest. I was planning on giving a little information of what led me up to the Kabbala. It's kind of been occurring my whole life in subtle ways, which inevitably led me to the tree. The tree of life is what is the system inside the Kabbala. For instance, when I was a kid, my soccer jersey numbers were either 3 or 7. I always used 37 in my email accounts and other accounts. And 3 and 7 have always been my numbers, so to say. 3 and 7 are very important in the Kabbala, and I'll go into this a little shortly, but
Also, 137 is the number of the Qabalah and Hebrew gematria.
Okay. Yeah.
So basically, the basic philosophy of the Qabalah, which I'll go into here shortly, like I was saying, goes further back in antiquity than Hebrew mysticism, which is normally the culture that it's attributed to. The concepts exist in Assyrian philosophy, Zoroastrian philosophy, most likely Sumerian philosophy, but most importantly, ancient Egyptian philosophy. And all you really need to understand about ancient civilizations is Egypt. And the only thing you really need to know about Egypt is the Giza Plateau. For instance, the lion statue made out of 200-ton blocks, otherwise known as the Sphinx, shows signs of tropical rain weathering. And the last time the Giza Plateau had tropical rain was a really long time ago, most likely around 10,500 BC, when the constellation Leo was aligned to the complex in relation to the precession of the equinox, as the statue is a giant lion. So it shows that the academic hegemony may be wrong about the whole concept of ancient civilizations, as there's only 2 cranes in the world that can currently lift 200-ton blocks. So there's no way that I believe a man force could lift all of these monoliths. So it's definitely a very interesting topic to look into. Reasonably, it would take like 2,000 men to lift a 200-ton block, as they're only like 30 feet by 15 feet wide. That doesn't seem very likely. And then you have the pyramids, which also show precessional correspondence in relation to Orion. They're perfectly aligned to Orion during the precessional node of that era. And they also have pi and the golden proportions in the structures, in the complex. So, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is showing why ancient philosophies should be looked into more. And as the Qabalah shows signs in Egypt, that's what we'll go to.
Exactly, yeah, because I've studied myself also intensively the Gizeh Plateau, but to my what I find is that the academic community has not much to do with science, but more with belief systems, and it's very difficult to help people change their belief system. So there's no point in giving argumentations or trying to convince them that it was totally impossible the way they like to see it. So it's
exactly.
It's very, very tough. But anyway, what I really like, Jeff, is that you disconnect Judaism from the Kabbalah, because most people think that they are strongly connected, but Judaism is just one of the belief systems that was able to integrate the Kabbalah. But Kabbalah itself is much older, and as you say also in your video, it's a universal system. It has nothing to do with a belief system or even maybe a planetary system. So that makes it very interesting.
Yeah, well, the Jewish system had a good understanding of the Kabbalah, don't get me wrong. Moses was one of the first patriarchs said to pass down the Kabbalah, but he was also in Egyptian mystery schools, so, or at least as shown by Sigmund Freud. So, it's interesting how it passes down through the ages, but it definitely is a universal system, probably because of how simply it explains how the universe has manifest.
Yeah, because you say the word Kabbalah originates from QBL, and that's an ancient word meaning to receive. So yeah. So Kabbalah is
Hebrew.
Hebrew, okay. But what exactly do we receive by the Kabbalah? Can you give that answer to that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, well, certain researchers and other monumental figures have said that they don't really believe consciousness is created in the brain, but we're more receivers of consciousness. In ancient times, everyone experienced having several different centers of consciousness that originate outside of the head. So if you look at the tree that way, it has 10 different levels of consciousness that you can access. And if you unite all of these levels of consciousness, Krishna character, having all the knowledge at your fingertips that you truly need to change the world. But it's interesting how I've definitely experienced receiving consciousness a lot lately. I mean, obviously we have this phenomenon going on where people are awakening or enlightening or transforming or whatever you want to call it. But you're definitely seeing a lot of people receiving a flux of consciousness. So it alludes to what we were talking about a little.
Yeah, so perhaps it's more convenient or more appropriate to see consciousness as a kind of light bulb which receives electricity, and the higher power the electricity has, the brighter the light is. So it's not a function of the light bulb itself, but from the amount of energy it's receiving. Is that a correct metaphor, do you think?
Yeah, you could look at it like that, definitely. The light is a good correspondence as well, because in the Qabalah, light is very important, so that's a good analogy.
Okay. Well, maybe it's an idea, Jeff, if we just go from 1 to 10 to do all the sephiroms and explain your knowledge a little bit about what they mean. Is that an idea for the radio show?
Alright, yeah, that sounds good. And I can go back a little to my theories on how the Qabalah truly became a little after I finished the numbers. But essentially what you have with the Qabalah is it starts with the triadic process of zero, nothing, becoming infinity, and then further to absolute limitless light. And then centering in this absolute limitless light, you have the number 1, which is the first node or level, so to say, on the tree of life. It is unity, the matrix of spirit that connects us all. From 1, the numbers 2 and 3 arise, and you have duality, gender. 2 is the father, it's the essence of consciousness. And 3 is the mother, it is the substance that holds everything together. And these first 3 numbers are what are called the supernal triad. They're the logos, the divine word of God that's creating the universe, or created the universe.
Yes.
Arising from the supernal triad is the next 7 numbers. And in total, you have all of the primary numbers that create any higher numbers. So 10 is a very important number, as the Kabbalists and the Platonists constantly said. This 3 and 7 combination is what I was referring to at the beginning, about how I was kind of hinting towards always feeling destined towards the Qabalah. 3 and 7 have always been my numbers. And then looking at the supernal triad with a quantum outlook, the process of 0 and 1 would be like the vacuum which created the universe and connects everything together. In physics, the universe is known to be 99.99% empty space. So the mother, number 3, who's the substance that holds all things, is empty space. To the 0.01% that isn't empty space is energy. So this would relate to the number 2, which was said to be energetic and vitalizing. It was the essence of consciousness. You still there?
I'm still there. I'm listening.
Okay,
Yeah.
just check. Yeah. Anyways, after the first three numbers, the process of duality continues. 4 is masculine, and it is the potentiality of objective nature. And 5 is feminine, and it is the transition of ideality into actuality. The 4th and 5th numbers are said to have been the expanding and contracting powers in the universe. 6, the falling number, is a child of 4 and 5, and it isn't given a gender. It's returning to unity. 6 is the combination of each number in the supernal triad. So likewise, it is a lesser logos. It is the symbol of the soul. The seal of Solomon to represent this number, or the Star of David, and the triangle pointing downwards represents female, and the triangle pointing upwards represents male. So it's a really good symbol, not only in Jewish mysticism, but it's a.
Yeah, I'll just fill in when Jeff is out, so I'm not sure what to do anymore. But what Jeff is telling is fully resonating with my view. Sorry, Jeff, I took over because you're gone again. But a triangle pointed downwards is indeed a female sign, and a triangle pointed upwards is a male sign. And combined, those two triangles gives the seal of Solomon, which is also the symbol for 6. So I'm just filling in, Jeff, whenever you're offline, so that the story can continue on this side of the recording.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah.
We'll go to 7. Duality continues with 7 and 8. 7 is masculine. It is the emotional life in human, the cohesive agent in the universe. And 8 is feminine. It is the fluidic mind, the thinking agent in human. Emerging from 7 and 8 is another child, returning back into unity. 9 is the formatting essence. It is like the spiritual realm, the astral plane, or I should say spiritual realms. Mm-hmm. But these first 9 numbers are each split into triads. The first triad, like I mentioned, was the supernal triad, and then the second one is the triad of consciousness, and then this last one is the triad of the unconscious.
Yeah, and in between those triads we find, demarcation lines. You call the first one the abyss. That's between the upper triad and the middle triad. And then between the middle and the lower is the veil. And it's really funny because one of my presentations is also about going beyond the veil. So, it's remarkable how we are on the same line. But tonight is all about you, Jeff, so please continue. Yeah.
Okay, the emerging from these previous numbers is the last number, 10, which is also in the unity gender correlation. And it represents the physical world, the plane of objective nature. So that's what you have in the tree of life in correspondence to the number system, but there's also levels of consciousness, like I was saying, where 1 is what is called the crown, the holies of holies, pure unity. 2 is wisdom, 3 is understanding, 4 is mercy, 5 is strength, 6 is harmony, 7 is victory, 8 is splendor, 9 is the foundation, and lastly 10 is the kingdom. And like I was saying earlier, by uniting all of these levels of consciousness into your psyche, you can really receive hidden knowledge. And then another correlation within the Qabalah that is important is the 7 traditional celestial bodies. I know you definitely go into these a little more in depth in some of your work and relate Here we have the number 7 showing up again, which is not only in the chakra systems and days of the week, but also colors in the spectrum and the traditional planets. So it seems to be a prevalent number. But anyways, some of the Kabbalists have attributed the newly found planets to spheres in the tree of life, and others just believe that they are higher octaves of certain of the traditional 7. But traditionally speaking, the number 1 and 2 weren't attributed to a celestial body. 1 was said to be beyond the understanding of anything tangible at this point in our evolution. And 2 was generally attributed to the zodiac, the 12 constellations.
Okay.
And then 3 is where the celestial body attributions begin, and 3 is attributed to Saturn, 4 to Jupiter, 5 to Mars, 6 to the Sun, 7 to Venus, 8 to Mercury, and 9 to the Moon. And then 10 isn't really said to be attributed to a celestial body, but as it represents the physical kingdom, it could easily be said that it is attributed to the earth. So.
And is this also a kind of stairways to heaven, Jeff? Is number 10 where we start our spiritual journey and then we climb up all the way to 1? Is that how I can see it?
Yeah, that's how the Rosicrucians definitely see it, which is actually where I got a lot of my information from. I'm kind of more fond of the Rosicrucians because they really embrace Western philosophical systems like Egyptian philosophy, but also Eastern as well. And basically in the Rosicrucian system, you go through grades, and they use the tree as a way of progression. So each level, number 10, for instance, would be the after your initiation. That would be your first level, and then you progress on up. So you can definitely look at it like that.
Yeah, great. It fully resonates. Also, in one of my previous radio shows, I talked about the ciphers, the magic squares, and there's a magic square of 3, and that is indeed related to Saturn, all the way up to the magic square of 9, which is related to the moon I call Luna. So it's fully in line with what you're telling here, Jeff. So makes me really happy that it's all pointing the same direction.
Nice. Yeah, magic squares were used in all the mystery schools, really, Sufism and Rosicrucianism and whatnot. So it's interesting. I need to check out your video on those. I've only really watched the creation one, but yeah, the universalities are immense. The more and more you look into the system, the more epiphanies you have. So.
Yeah, and that is really fascinating to me, because we all reach the same conclusions, or at least we reach the same tracks. We continue our journey, but yeah, it doesn't really matter where you start. You all end up in studying ciphers and the dynamics of the universe and how things are related, and also as above, so below. That's also in your video. You see that the same dynamics is above as well as below. So it doesn't really matter if you start above or below. You end up seeing the same picture in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, everything's from the source. So.
Yeah.
And Hermes was definitely showed signs of being a Kabbalist to some extent.
Yeah, perhaps
that phrase is coined by.
He was perhaps the first Kabbalist on this planet. Who knows? I don't know. But he was a true inspirational source, at least for me, and I think for many others. You start with the 0, and in your video you explain it's related to Ein, to Sof, and to Ar, which is in fact also a kind of trinity. You mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, to the 0 and the infinity. But can you explain to the listeners what is your understanding of Ein, Sof, Ar?
Yeah. So basically, what the Kabbalists will say is, in the beginning there was nothing. and this is the causeless cause of all manifestation. And then to become conscious of itself, it becomes infinity, and yet further to absolute limitless light. And this is the basic principle of zero. It's kind of showing a nothingness and infinity principle in the same aspect.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if you know the work of Nassim Haramein.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and he talks a lot about the zero and infinity, and I think he's a really talented speaker. He uses a lot of humor to explain things, so I enjoy watching him, and I met him even once. But he's also talking about infinity, which is also zero in the same way. But it's very confusing for people who have a left brain only working, because they say you have to choose between infinity or zero. It can't be both. So that's a little bit a kind of a paradox. But it's in fact both. So maybe you can share your light on this, Jeff, how zero and infinity can be the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, well, I believe that once you reach a state, once you fill yourself with nothingness, you can have a immense fullness. So zero could be looked at infinitely in that aspect. I haven't watched the video that Nassim Haramein explains that yet. I've only seen the Black Hole documentary, so I can't quite relate, but zero can definitely be looked at in terms of infinity. Yeah, it's quite a philosophical issue, but I've done a lot of work on 0 point energy, and the claim there is that if you truly find the 0 point, then you have an infinite source of energy. So there's also the connection between zero and infinity. And definitely, yeah.
So, but it is, for our logical brain, our rational brain, is a concept is not graspable. We cannot grasp it. So maybe we should talk about things that we are able to understand, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so I was going to go into Rosicrucianism a little.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the information, like I was saying, is from my Rosicrucian studies. And the genius of Isaac Newton was largely influenced by the Rosicrucians. And even though he has discovered, or I should say rediscovered and given back humanity calculus, the concept of gravity, laws of motion, among other things, he didn't really consider himself a scientific person, but more so... Hello?
Yeah, you were talking about that Einstein didn't consider himself as a scientific person.
Oh, no, Isaac Newton, actually.
Oh, Isaac Newton, sorry.
Yeah, he was really influenced by the Rosicrucians. They even say he was a member. But he studied and wrote extensively about Solomon's temple, and many occultists believe that the origins of the Qabalah go back to King Solomon. And Newton was particularly interested in some of the sacred geometries of the temple, and believed that certain mathematical problems are found in the dimensions of the temple. Basically, Solomon was a Kabbalist, so it might provide some information on some of the mathematical problems that show up in the dimensions of the temple, and how he was able to accomplish some of these great things that he did.
And Sir Isaac Newton was able to connect to that knowledge and bring it alive, so to say. Is that a correct conclusion?
Yeah. He studied Solomon's temple extensively, and kind of drew a bunch of parallels about that topic. So.
And how did you get into contact with Qabalah, Jeff? Well, where did your search start?
You can say it happened after my awakening, so to say. But basically, after this awakening, old information that I already knew spoke to me in new ways. Since I was a kid, I always listened to occult rock because of the amount of talent in the music, but I particularly listened to Led Zeppelin. I think their music prepared me on a subconscious level to understand the occult past all of the blind accusations. After all, the occult means nothing more than that which is hidden. So anyways, groups like the Beatles, Led Zeppelin, Rush, and so on left hints in their music, album artwork, biographies, about how various Kabbalists have influenced them. So this is what led me to pick up a bunch of work on the Kabbalah teachings, and one in particular, The Tree of Life by Israel Regardie, resonated with me astronomically. And so I read the first few chapters from this book, and then came to the conclusion that I should further my studies out in the wilderness. So that's what led me to Colorado, and that I think the vibrational state that I was living in out in the wilderness really allowed me to understand the Kabbalah in depth during those initial studies. So,
and what do you mean by
to the Kabbalah?
Yeah, what do you mean by in the wilderness? Because I have read a lot of people that they indeed got inspiration, like Victor Schauberger, but also Musashi, one of the Japanese sportsmen. But that's another story. What exactly did you do in nature, in the wilderness, as you say it, Jeff?
Well, I grew up in California. I was going to college in San Francisco, and I pretty much just set aside the life as I had known it at the time, and went to the Weminuche Wilderness in Colorado, which is part of the San Juan mountain range. And I was pretty much focusing my whole studies on spiritual aspects of life, reading Kabbalah teachings as well as some work on shamanism and other mystery schools, and doing a lot of meditation. I was eating raw, doing fasting, and really experiencing that we create our realities pretty potently, I guess you could say. It definitely was a life-changing experience.
Yeah, I can imagine. And you still eat raw, and you still try to eat as healthy as possible?
Unfortunately not so much anymore. I need to. I've been working a full-time job while I've been putting out all of these videos, so sometimes I don't have time to make it to like a health food store, so I'll order food. But I'm trying to get back on that path. I'm actually planning to live at a Buddhist monastery out here for a while. So once I get more ground.
Yeah, well, let me comment while you're a little bit offline, Jeff. I see that with a lot of people too, that it's good, I think, to focus on healthy lifestyle for a while. That will enable us to have a kind of breakthrough spirituality on our own spirituality. And but then when you have that breakthrough, then you are liberated from all the limitations you had before, and then it's very good to continue whatever you are doing. Sorry, Jeff, I was just filling in while you were where you're off again. I was saying that I've seen that with a lot of people. It's good to focus on food to get a kind of spiritual breakthrough, but once you have had that, then it's okay to be less strict with it, because you have already reached a higher level. So you've liberated yourself from those limitations, and so you don't have to. Yeah. So,
yeah, and I think you can go back to that level more so because it's fundamental in your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think eating raw will have really powerful spiritual effects on one. Also trance states and deep states of meditation, vibrating ancient languages, and wall gazing and these sorts of things. So
okay,
that could provide some insight on what we mean by receiving consciousness. I think in altered states of consciousness, our perception is broken down, so we can begin to work with what in the mundane realm, so to say, would seem kind of intangible or obscure.
You know, it is true from that point of perspective, but once you've opened your mind to a higher, to a broader reality, then you can go beyond the physical reality, and you open up to the world beyond that veil. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I've not heard about wall gazing. I've heard about sun gazing and all the other things you said, but what exactly is wall gazing, Jeff?
Well, Bodhidharma, he actually would stare at a wall for like days and would have some deep spiritual experiences from it. It's kind of just like meditating with your eyes open.
Okay, I thought he was sitting under a tree and watching in nature, but he was sitting in front of a wall.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I've never understood that. But that is, then your mind, well, I continue while you are not online anymore. What happens is that your mind at a certain moment gives up, because when you keep focusing on something that is not moving, it's not changing, then your mind loses interest, and then your mind opens up to a new reality. Is that the essence of the technique of wall gazing, Jeff? If you're back now, not yet. I think that is the way it works, because your mind needs variety, needs change. And when it gets constant input, it starts to ignore that constant input, and then there comes room for new impressions. Yeah. Sorry, Jeff, I tried to explain in my words what the secret was of wall gazing, but maybe you can show it also with the listeners, and then they can see at the same time if I was right or not, according to your view.
Well, you basically just stare at a wall for several hours, and you'll begin to reach a very deep meditative state, which is obviously brings deep spiritual experiences. So it's basically wall gazing summed up. I mean, you really have to try it to experience it. It's just staring at a wall for several hours. Or you can do traditional meditation too. I was just throwing it out there.
Yeah, and I think that the reason why it works is because your brain gets so bored by staring at the wall that it opens up to a new reality. Is that true, according to your...
Yeah, that you could definitely look at it that way.
Yeah. And then we're back to receiving, because then you receive that information from the field, as it also has been called, but then you receive different information about the reality, and then you open up yourself to that, and then you then you are practicing the Kabbala.
Yeah, well, I was actually going to talk about the receiving a little more.
Okay.
I kind of believe that what is happening is we're talking with our DNA. As you obviously know, our coding system and genetic instructions is DNA.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the fingerprint of all evolutionary activity. But 97% of this DNA is what is considered non-coding, or junk DNA. And this junk DNA is filled with information that builds out organisms. Or in other words, it's the intelligent force that exists in DNA that supposedly we aren't in contact with. But what is interesting is that all human languages have a connection in common, and this connection was discovered in 1939 by George Zipf. who called this correspondence Zipf's law. And he studied text in all sorts of different languages. And during his research, he ranked the words in order of frequency. And what he found was, which has since become an empirical law, is that whatever the language is, English, Japanese, Dutch, or any other language, is that a direct, consistent mathematical relationship exists between the rank of the word and the actual frequency of occurrence of that word. So no matter which text he would select, when he created a histogram that plotted word frequency against word rank, the result was a straight line with a slope of -1 for every human language. And what's even more interesting is that when researchers applied this law to our junk DNA, these regions demonstrated a perfect Zipf's law linear plot. So it shows that our junk DNA is actually a language.
Yes.
So I believe that in deep mystical and ecstatic states we can communicate with this language. And I believe that it's kind of the source of the Qabalah in a sense.
Whoa. And
I mean, it's reasonable to say that DNA is older than the star system. We just don't know that much about history of things beyond this star system. But I would imagine there would be some form of coding system if there's life on another planet.
Yeah, there must be. And the guy you talk about, George Schiff, is it called ZYPF at the end?
ZIPF, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's George Schiff.
ZIPF.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Great. Yeah, I've heard about it before, but I've not seen such a clear proof as you describe it now, Jeff. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, well, his work's become an empirical law now, so they're saying that it is definitely a fact that all languages have this correspondence.
Yeah. Yeah, and the beauty of DNA is that it's also you can also rewrite it. That's what Bruce Lipton is showing us in his work. So we can also make new words with that same universal language, and that we can, in that way reprogram our subconsciousness. And then it becomes really fascinating. Yeah, for the listeners, if you've not heard about it clearly, it's George Schiff. If you Google his name, then you can easily find it, or Schiff law, power law, all those words will bring you there. Jeff, can we have a look into the future with what you expect? Because most people talk about that the energies are coming towards this planet are reaching a higher frequency, and that is also triggering our DNA, the part in the so-called junk DNA, the 97%, as you talked about it. What do you expect? What do you expect to happen in this period of time?
Well, what quantum mechanics shows is that there's a probability for any outcome, and what creating a reality shows is that the likelihood of what will happen is all up to what we create. I tend to take a positive outlook on things as much as possible, so I see like a new humanity arising. I wouldn't put a date on it. Like, I wouldn't say December 21st is like, the date. I think it's definitely an important date for energy. But I believe more and more people are gonna experience this phenomenon that has been occurring, awakening or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it. And I think as more and more people do this, and keep pursuing higher knowledge of the universe, it's gonna, in effect, transmit that understanding into the collective, which will create more and more people to wake up. So eventually we'll hit like a critical mass, so to say, and that's when I believe the new humanity will emerge. But I like to look at the future as bright, just for the fact that thoughts become things. So if everyone's thinking about, like a Armageddon or a pole shift or World War III or this and that, which seems to be occurring much lately, the neural pathways in your brain, you're creating neural pathways in your brain, and that energy isn't dead, it's not inanimate. It works on the unseen planes of life to ultimately objectify on the seen planes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think by holding those thought modalities, you're really creating that possibility.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason why there is a lot of that kind of information in the mainstream media and in the Hollywood films. But
yeah, as well as the conspiracy theories. I almost wonder if they're like, kind of interconnected. Because a lot of people will say that what led them to a spiritual path is the conspiracy theories, and I see truths in that. I definitely witnessed that for myself, but to a certain extent, you got to set them behind. But yeah, definitely in Hollywood, they have evolved to a very sophisticated form of control, if you want to call it that.
I think
not
you can call it that, yeah.
But more complex form of control.
Yeah, and it's kind of a mass hypnosis. What's the right word? To control the energies of the masses in order to create that reality which is on the agenda of the people who like to control this planet, so to say. But I see that more and more people are waking up from that hypnosis and trying to free themselves from the matrix and create the kind of reality they really want to create. So I think it's really shifting at this moment, and the so-called conspiracy thinkers have mostly freed themselves from the conspiracies and are looking beyond that and seeing what our own role is in everything and how we can influence our own life and how we can make a difference. So I think there's a shift going on. That's at least what I perceive in my own environment.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely see that as well. I mean, I have friends back home in California who I never would have thought would wake up or, pursue some of these aspects of life, and they are. So it's definitely a good sign. I think what we can do is just keep educating people, keep working on ourselves, keep growing spiritually, and that will help others. So we'll really set the example of how they can evolve.
Exactly, and the best thing we can do, Jeff, is just giving our own example. Practice what we preach and combining our research, because that's what I also think is marvelous. And I'm really happy that you joined the Pateo Academia, because there are many fascinating researchers like you and many others. But it's very valuable, I think, when we start to combine it and see that we are in fact all showing the same kind of patterns, but all from a different angle. And that's even making every research more strong and more valid in a way. So we need to, we don't need anything, but I think it's very good if we join forces and combine our efforts.
Yeah. Uniting is important.
Yes, I think so too.
One powerful entity when we unite.
Exactly. We want to go to Keter all the way up to one. So that's unity. That's
yeah. Number one. Yeah, good correspondence there.
Yeah. So that's where also the Kabbala is pointing us to unite, to bring everything together. I like to call the number one the number of wholeness, of everything is whole at that point. And then with a W at the beginning, so it's the whole of everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to use that word.
Yeah, we'll play on words too.
Unity sometimes is a little bit frightening for people because they think that everything has to be uniform then. But you and I are very different, and that's very beautiful too. We don't have to be the same. But we can be one in the sense that we are connected to the whole, And that's why I prefer the word wholeness instead of unity. But it's in fact meaning the same thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Great. So, how can we share the information about the Qabalah further? You already mentioned that there will be a PDF online, so that's great. People can read it. People can watch your video.
I'll connect with you after this and redo the PDF in a more professional form and send it to you, and you can link up your viewers. And then if you're interested in the Qabalah, I highly recommend The Tree of Life by Israel Regardie. There's a bunch of other Kabbalist work, but he tries to keep things as scientifically relevant as possible, and he also integrates a lot of different cultures into it, which I think is important.
Okay, perhaps we can mention that in the PDF to have further readings and links to perhaps online resources so that people can do their own research.
Yeah, definitely.
Would be great. Okay, well, thank you very much, Jeff.
Yeah, it's a little unexpected with all the drops, but thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was because I'm not sure how much time we have when we cut out the drop, but I think we have to round it up around here somewhere. But if you have a final comment or a final word you want to share to the audience, you're more than welcome, Jeff. So whatever if there is something you want to share.
Just keep pursuing what your heart is driving you to do, I guess. Anything is possible. Nothing is too good to be true. That's an important mind state to have, I believe.
Yeah, I fully agree. The only limitation is the limitations we put on ourselves. But there are no limits if we are fully open-minded. Yeah. Great. What's great talking to you, Jeff. Thank you for joining us and and a little bit of disturbances. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for listening. My next guest will be from the Netherlands. His name is Koen Vermeeren, and we will talk about his work in the next radio show. Hopefully, you'll be joining us then again. Thank you, and goodbye.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
There's a reason for my teaching, even though I can't explain. More than a dream that you are reaching, more than a laugh that shadows all the pain. A special meaning in the thorn of dreams, in the garden where a thought can blind me. 'Cause I am lost here, where it never gleams, where I found that I screamed so blindly, yeah. Until I rise up, fall down. Is this the reason that I can't feel the ground? Am I waiting for my tomorrow, or should I say goodbye? Yeah. Well, am I walking with a purpose? 'Cause I feel the same. And as I wait for my dreams to surface, as I wait I'm drowning in the rain. Just when I thought that it was over, I lost my grip and I hit the wall. A simple dream that I tripped over. Now I have to wake up to my fall, until I rise up, fall down. Is this the reason that I can't feel the ground? Am I waiting for my tomorrow, or should I say goodbye? Yeah.
Radio.